I can definitely tell you that I'm not the most patient person in the world, but living in China has definitely helped me to chill out a little bit. Hey everyone, it's Rochelle from Adventures Around Asia, and today we are going to be talking about the 10 reasons why living and working in China is super awesome. But before we get into the training, I just wanted to do a really quick announcement. For those of you who are pretty sure you want to teach abroad in China, but you just need a little extra help, for the rest of September, so for the last 2 weeks of September, I am having free 30-minute calls with me where we can chat about what you're going through, what you're struggling with, what your fears are, and we can figure out if my training program, Teach Abroad Squad, is right for you. So if you want to have a free 30-minute call with me, anytime in the next 2 weeks, be sure to check the link below the video. You can sign up for a call there. Now, if you missed it, if it's after September, don't worry, I'm going to be doing this again. I'm just taking a little break for a while because I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Yeah, that's happening. But yeah, that's why I'm in Australia and you're seeing a different background. I'm getting married in 2 weeks. So before that, for the last 2 weeks of September, I'm going to be doing free 30-minute calls with me where we can talk a little bit more about teaching abroad in China and figure out if my program Teach Abroad Squad is right for you. So if you're kind of on the fence or you want to get a little extra help with your Teach Abroad adventure, be sure to check the link below this video and sign up there. All right, now let's get into it. The 10 reasons why living and working in China is super awesome. Reason number 1, you get to experience a culture that's vastly different from your own. That's kind of the main reason why I wanted to go to China in the first place, was to live in a place that was just completely different from what I was used to in the US. I wanted to go to a place that was often misunderstood by the West. I wanted things to be different and maybe even a little bit hard. You know, I was excited for the cultural differences, for the different food, you know, for the different ways of living and working. And I think that's one thing that's just amazing about living in a place that's as different as China, is you really get to experience a completely different culture, a place, a way of life that's just completely different from the US. You get to experience different cultural norms, different foods, different ways of understanding the world, a different perspective on history and politics. And for those of you who are looking at moving to a place that's just completely different from where you're from, to sort of challenge yourself and grow as a person and understand more of the world and learn about viewpoints that might be different than your own, I think that China is the perfect place for that. Number 2, which is my favorite, it's the food. Chinese food is amazing, and it breaks my heart when people travel to China and they're like, oh gosh, the food was weird or the food was awful. I'm like, where are you eating? Everything is amazing. I lived in China for 5 years and I still can't get over the food. It is so good. I could eat Chinese food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and never get sick of it because there's so much regional variety. Like, I could have dumplings for breakfast and Xinjiang noodles for lunch and hot pot for dinner and just never be bored. And Chinese food is very different from the American Chinese food or Australian Chinese food or wherever it is, you know, where you're from. It's completely different. I mean, there's no Panda Express crap in China, okay? The food is amazing, and even now that I'm not in China, I still cook Chinese food because it's so good. And I lived in Vietnam as well, and Vietnamese food is all good and stuff, but it just, I'm sorry to anyone who is Vietnamese, Chinese food really takes the cake for me. There's just so much variety, and it is incredible. So if you move to China, be sure to ask your coworkers or your friends who've been in China for a while to show you all the good spots, and possibly even go on a food tour to learn about the amazing local restaurants in your area. I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Chinese food. Number 3, the third reason why living in China is awesome, is that you're surrounded by history. And this is especially impressive to me being from the west coast of the US, where our history does not go back very far. I loved living, especially in a city like Beijing, where I got to live in the historic Hutong neighborhoods. I hiked 9 different sections of the Great Wall. I could go, to the Forbidden City, Summer Palace, Temple of Heaven, Lama Temple. I was just surrounded by history. I've been to the Terracotta Warriors 3 times. It's just amazing to be in a place with so much history, and it really sort of brings to life some of the things that I got to learn in my history classes in high school and in college. So I think that's one really amazing thing about living in China. As many Chinese people will tell you, China has 5,000 years of ancient history, so enjoy it. Reason number 4 why living and working in China is awesome, and this one is kind of tied to teaching abroad or working in the education industry. I loved having a meaningful job. Going to work every day, knowing that what I did made a difference, that the actions that I took or the extra effort that I put into my job actually made a difference in the lives of my students. I love the idea that I could open up my students' eyes to other cultures and ways of life. I love the conversations that I had with some of my students outside of the classroom, maybe on the pressures to get good grades, or I had some students who were LGBTQ and we could talk a little bit about that because it's not quite as accepted in China. And I just know that every bit of extra effort that I put in could actually really make a positive impact in the lives of my students. Number 5 reason why I love living and working in China is the cheap cost of living. Compared to the US or Australia, where I am now, living in China is super cheap. I mean, I could take the subway to work in Beijing for just 50 cents one way. I could get a nice dinner for $2 or $3. I mean, the cost of living is just crazy cheap compared to here. Taxis are only a couple dollars. You can buy things really cheap online on Taobao and JD.com. And if you make just even a decent salary, you can have an incredible experience in China just because the cost of living is so low. And that brings me to point number 6. You can save a crazy amount of money in China just due to the low cost of living compared to your salary. I mean, if you make a somewhat decent salary, you just have the ability to save so much money. I mean, when I worked as a college admissions consultant in Beijing, I was making, after taxes, around 17,500 RMB per month. But I also had a housing stipend that covered most of my housing, and I was able to pocket that extra money as well. And I saved up 40,000 US dollars in around 2 years without even really trying. And sure, I budgeted a little bit. Like, I got an apartment with roommates so I could pocket half my housing stipend. I didn't go crazy and spend a ton, but I still went to Starbucks when I felt like it. I still drank like $8 cocktails sometimes on the weekends. If I was feeling lazy, I'd sometimes take a taxi to work. So I had a really good quality of life, and I saved up $40,000 without even really trying. And even when I was making a horrible salary, I was making 5,000 RMB per month, which is around $800 a month. And I had free housing, and I kind of lived in the middle of nowhere, so there wasn't much to spend money on. But I traveled a ton, and I still saved up $3,000 at the end of the year. So you have the ability to save a ton of money in China without even really trying. And I know some people, my free Facebook group and Teach Abroad Squad, they were struggling back home, in the US, Canada, Australia, UK, wherever. They were struggling just to make ends meet, clipping coupons, really stressed about their income every month. And they moved to China, and after a few months, once, they've got settled, that pressure, that money pressure is just gone, because you can save up so much money if you just have a somewhat decently paying job in China. Now, reason number 7 why living and working in China is awesome is that the job market is really in your favor. There is an amazing job market in China. I found a statistic a while back. This one's from 2016, so it's a little bit old. But according to the Chinese Bureau of Education, China needs 100,000 foreign teachers. However, there are only 30,000 legally recognized teachers in China, foreign teachers. That is crazy. What job market do you know that's like that? They need 100,000, and there are only 30,000. That's insane. What job market do you know that's that good? And of course, it's not 100% accurate, because there are people teaching illegally in China on tourist and business visas. And also, obviously, it's from 2016. But still, people, you'll notice that when you're applying to jobs in China, that a lot of schools, they want to hire you right away. Right? Like, you finish the interview, and then 2 days later they send you a contract, and they're like, can you please sign it and start right away? And you're kind of freaking out because, you want to follow my advice and apply to multiple jobs and not just take the first job that's offered. But it's kind of hard because people are just throwing job opportunities at you, especially if you have, if you meet all the legal qualifications, but also if you have some sort of teaching experience as well, or if you're very outgoing and energetic and personable, you will just have job offers thrown at you because the job market is crazy good. But this amazing job market gives you tons of opportunities to negotiate your contract, shop around, apply to a few different jobs, and see which job best fits you. So this is why I tell you not to take the first job that's offered. And I definitely make it clear with all my Teacher Bod Squad students as well. Like I do some coaching on this about how to kind of negotiate your contract and pick the best job offer for you, because there are just so many amazing jobs out there that you have your pick of the litter, basically. It's just a matter of avoiding all the crappy scam jobs and going for the really, really good ones, because there are just so many opportunities in China and the job market is wide open and waiting for you. Reason number 8 why living in China is awesome is that it's really easy to travel in China. China has a really amazing train and bus network that, frankly, as an American, makes me super jealous. I mean, I used to joke, you can go pretty much anywhere in China with 24 hours and $70 if you get on a sleeper train. Like, it's so easy and so cheap to travel around China. I mean, there are cheap flights to just about everywhere. There's the trains, there's buses. Hostels are really affordable and actually super nice in China. And even, the budget and boutique hotels can be really amazing if you look on Booking.com. And it's just so fun to travel around China as well. I mean, you can go to Chengdu and see the pandas. You can go and eat like hot pot, and you can go to Guilin and go in the mountains and go on a bamboo raft on the river. You can go to Beijing and see the Great Wall, or Shanghai. There are just so many amazing places to visit in China, and it's so easy to travel there and get around. And if you're working in the education industry, you will probably have a ton of vacation days, especially if you're working at a public, private, or an international school, like a school, during the school days and not a training center. You'll have a ton of vacation time, and you can really use this to your advantage. I mean, China has a ton of national holidays as well that you can use to travel, and that's one thing that's really awesome when you're living in China, is it just makes it so easy to travel pretty much not only all around China, but anywhere in Asia. I traveled, not only all around China, but also to Japan, Korea, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines multiple times, Vietnam multiple times. Like, I pretty much went all around Asia, and I wouldn't have been able to do that much traveling if I didn't live in China. Now, number 9 is something that most of us don't really think about, but something that's definitely true. If you live in China and take your adventure in China seriously and really want to learn and grow, you can become a much more patient and understanding person. I can definitely tell you that I'm not the most patient person in the world, but living in China has definitely helped me to chill out a little bit. Because in China, everything's done at the last minute. They would change the schedule all the time. Sometimes I would walk into a class and I'd be ready to teach, and somebody else would be teaching it, and they're like, oh yeah, we changed the schedule, sorry. Or they'd be like, hey, can you be ready in 5 minutes to do XYZ? And I'm like, what? Because everything in China is done at the absolute last second. I mean, even my first year in China, I was about to leave for the Chinese New Year or Spring Festival holiday, and they hadn't decided when all the students and teachers needed to be back at school yet. Like, we were starting like the 3-week-long holiday without knowing when school was starting back up again. And to me, I'm like, why? Why do you not just make the schedule at the beginning of the year, right? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But it's China. You just gotta go with the flow, Planes in China are always delayed. Things are done at the last minute. Sometimes things don't make sense. The restaurants and malls just like disappear overnight, and then nope, there's a new one. You kind of just have to go with the flow and understand that things in China are disorganized, and you oftentimes don't have a lot of control over what happens or what the government decides to do or what your school decides to do. And it really helps you become a more patient and understanding person. I've definitely realized now that if I'm traveling and things go wrong, okay, what's my next step? How do I figure this out? Or if things happen at the last minute, I've found that I can adapt much easier to last minute changes than I definitely could before I moved to China. And I will say that it's definitely been like a good growing experience for me to be able to kind of chill out a little bit and go with the flow in life and adapt to last minute changes. And finally, last but not least, the 10th reason why living and working in China is super awesome is because every single day is a new and exciting adventure. I used to always say to people, living in China isn't always easy, but it's definitely always interesting. And that is so true because every single day something new and exciting happens. I used to kind of get on Instagram stories or Snapchat and sort of show my everyday life in China, and everyone back home was always like, I cannot believe this is your life. Like, every single day is just some new and exciting adventure. And sometimes it's frustrating, like if things just don't happen as immediately as you would have liked them to. But even just the most simple thing, like getting a package or getting a bank card or, applying for a new visa is an adventure in and of itself. Living in China gives you so many incredible stories and crazy experiences that you can tell for the rest of your life. I mean, you'll be telling these stories to your grandkids if you decide to have grandkids. And just when you think that you know China, just when you think that you've been in China long enough that you understand how everything works and that you're a China expert, you learn something new. And even year 5, right up when I was leaving, I was learning new and interesting things about China. And that's something that you just can't take for granted. The idea that every single day something new, something different, something exciting happens. I mean, where in the world can you live where that is your life? All right, everybody, so that was my 10 reasons why living and working in China is super awesome. So if I've convinced you, if you're like, yes, I want to move to China, I just need a little bit of extra help or advice to get started, definitely scroll down below the video, click the link, and sign up for a 30-minute call with me so I can teach you a little bit more about my programs, about Teach Abroad Squad, and how I can help you have an amazing first year in China. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to also download my free guide, 10 Steps to Landing a High-Paying Job in China. This guide will walk you through the entire process step by step for how to find and land an awesome high-paying job in China. So definitely sign up for a free call with me and grab the guide. Now, finally, I want to know, are there any other amazing things about living and working in China? If you can think of any, be sure to leave them in a comment below because I'd love to hear from you about what your amazing experiences are from living and working in China. Is there anything that I left out? Definitely let me know in a comment below. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do that so you can get awesome Teach Abroad, living and working in China updates from me. I'll see you later. Bye.